Welcome back, folks, to Observations. Today I want to talk about retirement took away more than my paycheck. And I retired at 62, and for the first few months, I didn't fully recognize myself. Not because I was depressed and not because anything had really gone wrong, but because the person I'd been for 30 or 40 years, the one who showed up at work every day, solved problems, earned awards, and went home knowing what he'd accomplished, that person didn't have anywhere to go anymore. You know, when you think back on your working life, you spent more time at work than you spent anywhere else in your life. Think about that. 30, maybe 40 years or more for some. The better part of your waking hours, your best energy, your sharpest thinking, all of it pointed in one direction. That was back at work. And somewhere along the way, well, you didn't even notice it, that became who you and I were. And I don't care if you were the CEO or the accountant or the guy running the loading dock. You were somebody at that company. You had a title, you had a role, and you had value that was measured and recognized and rewarded. You know, the awards, the accolades, whatever your company handed out, the watches, the sweatshirts, coffee cups, all of it came as a result of what you did between 9 and 5 at that company. Now, the day after you retire, all of that's gone. And you may be listening to me right now and thinking, well, that won't matter. You're getting ready to retire. That none of that really counts. After all, you'll be golfing, fishing, traveling, doing all the things that you put off for decades. And those things are real, and you should enjoy them. But I'm going to tell you something that nobody told me before I retired. Those things will help, and they help hide a confusion and maybe a little hurt that you're going to feel inside after you retire, and they won't fix it. Because what you're missing after you retire is not a vacation. It's an identity, who you are, your purpose, your value, the feeling you used to get because something got done because you were there to do it. You know, it would be nice if we were computers. We could just flip the switch from employed to retired, and the new version of us just takes over. But folks, that's not how it works for most of us. For me, what I needed, and it took me a while to understand this, was something I could point to as having accomplished when the day was done. That sounds simple. But I think it explains more about human behavior than most people realize. It's why retirees restore old cars, why they garden, why they build furniture in the garage, volunteer, mentor, teach Sunday school, help with Habitat for Humanity. Why they start small businesses. Because people who've spent a lifetime working need to be able to look at something and say, that's my phone. And it's a scam likely. They need to be able to say, I fixed that. I helped that person. I accomplished something today that matters. And not just one-offs. We need to have a purpose that goes with us day after day. That matters because we matter. But I wasn't just looking for a paycheck. I needed something that showed that I still had value to contribute to society. We tend to become invisible when we get older. But I found that value in starting up a handyman business. It wasn't complicated, got a name, insured, got listed on a few sites where customers could find me. I already had the skills from a lifetime in construction. Been doing it since I was 10 years old in one form or another, helping our family build a house. Then I became a custom home builder later in life. And I'd been doing occasional handyman work on the side for years, but never looked at it as something more than just knocking out a few bucks because it was easy. But starting the business was just making my next step official. The work gave me back what retirement had quietly taken away, my identity. You know, there's something about construction, about fixing things that are broke, putting a building up where something wasn't there yet. It feeds a part of you that just having fun on the golf course can't fulfill. When I finished the job and the customer was satisfied, there was a feeling on their part and mine that came with it. And I made sure every customer was satisfied, all of them. I always got paid. And that standard would come back in reviews and referrals and the phone ringing again. And more than that, the work that I did had lasting value. I built a house for a good friend of mine. I've known him for 60 years. I built the house about 40 years ago. He still lives in it. I framed other houses that families are still living in today. The handyman jobs, of course, are smaller, but the same principle applies. When you do something right, it stays done. And that's lasting value. Years from now, somebody's going to open the door and flip a switch, and it's going to work exactly the way it should. Because I did it. And that kind of permanence gets into your bones when you've been doing it long enough. I think about the difference between who I was at work and who I was when I initially retired. Before I retired, I was a manager in the building materials industry. I was Wally the manager. And inside my company, that meant something sometimes. But outside of the company, nobody knew and nobody cared. And we understand that. The title existed because the company existed. The day I left, all of that stayed behind. As a handyman, though, I was Wally who showed up, did the job right, made somebody's life a little better. People talked about it. They left reviews. They called their neighbors. Those are the accolades now. That reputation was mine. It lived in the community that I live in, not in some company directory that nobody cares about. One set of values came from a title I had for 30, 40 years, but the other came from serving real people. Both of these things served a purpose. There's a difference between those things, though, that I didn't fully appreciate until retirement showed it to me. I'm not saying everyone should start a handyman business. That's not the purpose of this video. But I am saying this. Retirement will give you time, of course. But what it may quietly take away is harder to name and much harder to replace. And that's who you are. It's who I am. It's our identity, our purpose, our value. All the things that went with the old identity, the routine, the usefulness, the accomplishment, the sense that something got done today because you were there to do it, that goes with your job. Here's what I want to tell you if you're in that condition, if you're in that fog today, you've just retired and you're just realizing, man, who am I? Find something that gives back, something you can point to when it's finished and has lasting value. Probably more important, something that helps somebody else. When you had a job, you were helping somebody else. Whether you had a business, I don't care if you worked at McDonald's, you were serving food, you were helping people. And that carried a value of sorts for that time in your life. But now you're retired. And now you're not that person anymore, and you'll never be that person again unless you want to go back and get a job. And most of us don't want another job. But what we do want is to know that we're valuable. We don't want to become invisible. We want to still build things, not just houses or decks. But we want to build things that help people, that will last, things that after we've left and done what we did for them, they can still look at that and thank us that we came and did it. That provides value to another person, but it also provides value and purpose to you. Make that new you. Go out there and find something today that you can give back. Don't worry about how big the check is, because you probably don't even need the check, but you do need to have a purpose in life. I think that's all I need to say about that. I hope you're enjoying what you're hearing on my channel. It's new. I'm trying to give back some of the things that I've learned over the years. If you find it's giving you value, please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave a comment. Give me an idea of what you did when you retired that helped you retain that value and gave you greater purpose after you retired and you were no longer at your job. Thanks for listening, and until the next time, God bless.